from the back of Berger's McLaren. That was smoking on the grid, as we saw, and somebody pulling off there. It's a Ferrari, is it? Or possibly a Dallara?
I think it was a Dallara, but anyway, it is McLaren, and then it is Patrese. It was Pirro who pulled off. Emanuele Pirro, the very unlucky Roman who went so well in qualifying at Phoenix and here, and off goes Tarquini. Already then, out are Tarquini and Pirro on lap 1.
Yes, Tarquini looks as if he'd made some contact. Now, out front, Ayrton Senna, leading the race off the pole position, and there's been a lot of talk in the press before this race, talking about Senna's home advantage, whatever that might mean, because I have to say that, in my opinion, for Ayrton Senna, home is a disadvantage. He's under more pressure than normal here, and quite honestly, he's got such domination everywhere that winning without pressure is not a problem for him. Winning with pressure has been in the past, and we saw last year he attacked a back marker when he didn't need to when leading, and just think this sort of thing can happen. And the Williamses look very strong. They've been strong in qualifying. They were strong in the warm-up this morning, and so was Alain Prost, although he's starting from 6th place on the grid, and we'd expect to see him come more slowly through the race.
Well, already you can see the Ferrari of Jean Alesi is up behind Riccardo Patrese, with Nigel Mansell second in the race, but already 4/5 of a second, 8/10 of a second behind Ayrton Senna. The Brazilian is really getting the hammer down, doing what he always wants to do when he's got a clear track in front of him, and that is build up the maximum cushion, the maximum lead. We are expecting competitors to stop once for tyres between laps 20 and 30. That could change the complexion of the race, but meantime, Nigel Mansell in the Williams Renault with the semi-automatic gearbox, which Damon Hill has been testing in England between Phoenix and Brazil here, is going well, and that semi-automatic gearbox seems to have the bugs out of it. So lap 2, Patrese 3rd, Alesi 4th, behind him Berger in 5th place, then it's Nelson Piquet. And Alain Prost, who was second fastest in the warm-up, is down in 7th place, ahead of Stefano Modena, 8th in the Tyrrell Honda. And so Ayrton Senna going as he means to continue, 1.5 seconds ahead.
I saw a car pulling off in the background there, but I don't think it was from the leading group. That may have been a car just completing another lap. And Senna, you see, throwing up water there from the rumble strip, bit of lying water. It's been very changeable weather here in Sao Paulo for the last 3 days. Senna will be keen, if he can, to try and get a bit of space between himself and Mansell, but that may not be easy, and Mansell will certainly have other ideas about it. The Williams really went very much as we've been expecting it to go. New car, not quite so good in Phoenix, but went very well here indeed, and seems to be fully competitive.
Well, you can see that, because look at the gap between Nigel Mansell in 2nd position, and here is Riccardo Patrese 3rd, pulling away from Alesi 4th, Berger 5th, Piquet in 6th position, Prost is 7th, Modena there is 8th, and in 9th position was one of the Leighton House cars. I would suspect it to be Maurizio Gugelmin, notwithstanding the fact that the unfortunate Brazilian had a fire extinguisher explode in the car during the warm-up this morning and badly burned his back and legs, but he's been passed to drive by Professor Sid Watkins, who is FISA's resident doctor at all the Grand Prix, and of course Gugelmin will have an enormous amount of adrenaline flowing through his veins in Brazil in front of his home crowd, and that will wipe out a lot of the pain. But now, still on lap 4 in this 71 lap race, as we ride with Ayrton Senna, we are riding with the leader in the new McLaren MP4/6 with the Honda V12 engine, also new for 1991.
better than he's been at any other stage in the race, and he'll be looking to go through the complex here and try and get a toe and challenge Piquet on the main straight, which they're about to come onto. Prost needs to be closer than he is to have a go on the straight. Not close enough this time. He may be better to try and do him on the uphill straight past the pits and into turn 1.
Lap 12 out of 71. Ayrton Senna leading Nigel Mansell by 2.3 seconds. Riccardo Patrese is 4.3 seconds behind Mansell in third place. Fourth is Alesi, fifth is Berger, sixth is Nelson Piquet, seventh is Alain Prost, eighth is Stefano Modena, in ninth position, excellent, Bertrand Gachot in the Jordan. In 10th position, it is Andrea De Cesaris in the second Jordan. This is the first race that both cars have got into. And then behind him, it is Roberto Moreno in the Benetton, leading Eric Bernard's Lola. And then it is Morbidelli, Gianni Morbidelli, and in 14th place, it is Ivan Capelli. It's Bertrand Gachot on the right, the Belgian in the Ford-powered Jordan. And behind him you can see it is Roberto Moreno, the Brazilian. There's a lot of Brazilians in this race, of course. Moreno, Ayrton Senna, Nelson Piquet. Mauricio Gugelmin started it, but sadly has had to retire because of those fire extinguisher burns. Gabriele Tarquini is out of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Aguri Suzuki didn't even start. You remember he was wheeled away from the grid and has not started the race. And now Senna is coming up to start to lap people. It's one, and that's Nakajima out. Satoru Nakajima out. You can see the Japanese there. He's obviously not at all happy. He's saying, no, don't bother, I'm out of the race. Prost into the pits now. Prost into the pits from 7th position. Let's see how that time goes. Is it a good one? It was 8 seconds, but it took 15 seconds at Phoenix. And Senna is getting closer to Mansell, or rather the other way around.
Well, that in fact was good tactics by Alain Prost, because he was stuck behind Nelson Piquet, and now that he's on fresh rubber, he may have a clearer track behind him so he can make time on the road, or that would certainly be the thinking involved. And if he was doing his homework, he would have checked with the Ferrari pit that the road wasn't too crowded behind. So there is Alain Prost on fresh tyres as the leaders go by in a Leighton House park beside the road, so that must be Capelli's car.
Yes, Capelli out, and Alain Prost rejoined in 11th place, having put on a new set of tyres.
And that looks like Stefano Modena stopped. So disappointment for Modena and the Tyrrell team. Nakajima we've already seen out of the race. He looked as if he'd spun out, but that looks mechanical for Modena, and he was running pretty well. So disappointment for them.
Now, through they go again. And it's, well, it's half a second now. Nigel Mansell smokes the left tyre as it momentarily stops.
Yeah, just grabbed the left front brake. There's a bit of banking as they turn into that corner, which makes the left-hand side of the car go light. And on the straight, and you can see that the cars are very, very evenly matched in performance. And with these slow corners, and a slow corner onto the main straight, the lead car gets the jump on acceleration, and really overtaking is going to be very difficult indeed. in a straight fight, and extremely defendable from Senna's point of view with the powerful Honda V12 behind him. So Mansell, who closes right up in the hairpins, and he keeps doing that every lap, and then as we see when they get out onto the main straight, they go to that uphill left-hander, and at that point Senna gets the power on first, and even when Mansell's very close, he pulls a big lead. Now we're coming under braking now. This is the start of the left-hander onto the main uphill straight past the start-finish line. Senna's got that little bit of space, and Mansell won't get close to him, even as they get up to speed and he starts picking up a toe from the hole in the air made by the McLaren. And Mansell into the pits. Mansell has gone into the pits for tyres. Now, that's interesting. Now, this is vital. The Williams, if they can be really quick, that could put Mansell out in the lead when Senna's made his stop. Now, let's have a look. Bit of trouble with the right front, but not too bad. Go. And Mansell's got a problem with the automatic gearbox by the look of it. And that was a great shame, because it was a super task stop by the Williams team, but they've got this new automatic gearbox, and that seemed, I would have to guess, that that was a hiccup from the new gearbox.
He lost at the very least 6 seconds on that stop. If he'd taken 8, which would have been respectable, but instead he took 14, and so that's put him down, and Nigel Mansell has rejoined in 5th position. Race order now then: in the lead Ayrton Senna, up into 2nd place goes Riccardo Patrese, to 3rd place goes Gerhard Berger, to 4th position goes Alesi, to 4th position goes Berger, and in 5th place Nigel Mansell. He's on new tyres, but of course he's got to get past Berger, he's got to get past Alesi, he's got to get past Patrese before he can do anything about Senna, and that puts Senna into a tremendously strong position, and here comes the Brazilian into the pits. Now let's see how his pit stop compares with that of Nigel Mansell. You remember what Nigel Mansell's time was? And so, oh, what an absolute cracker! 7 seconds!
Yes, and Senna got the car moving literally as it landed off the jack, and that was a fantastic stop, fantastic work by the McLaren team, and a brilliant getaway by Senna. He missed a gear on the way out, but that won't hurt him compared with the problems that Mansell had. And Senna now has a very, very big advantage over Mansell, who's obviously his main threat in the race. There are cars between them, and that was extremely good tactics by the McLaren team to come in immediately after Mansell, because it didn't allow Mansell to get any sort of a run on new tyres, get the response in immediately, and that has really established Senna and McLaren in a very comfortable and healthy situation now.
Yeah, Senna, as he did in Phoenix, came in, took on new tyres and did not lose the lead. But Nigel Mansell is really flying. He is now up into 4th position behind 2nd place Riccardo Patrese, 3rd place Jean Alesi, both of whom have got to change tyres. But it was that tyre stop that could have won the race for Ayrton Senna. I say could have, we're on lap 27, it's a 71 lap race, there's still a long way to go. But at the present moment, you're watching race leader Ayrton Senna on new tyres after a scintillating 7-second pit stop. And that is Eric Bernard lapping Thierry Boutsen. Eric Bernard in the Lola, and Gerard Larousse will be delighted with that. The Larousse Lola team have got a very severe financial problem. There is a question of whether they're even going to be at the San Marino Grand Prix. They need money desperately. But now there is only 3.2 seconds between Ayrton Senna and Riccardo Patrese. Now this is sensational. Patrese is starting to close on Ayrton Senna, and you're going to see it for yourselves. The incredible Italian in his 210th Grand Prix. There's the confirmation. Mansell up into 3rd place on lap 28.
Yes, well, that's the important one, because remember, Patrese still has to stop for tyres, and Senna has the advantage of fresh rubber, so he'll pull away pretty quickly, one would imagine. And Mansell is also chasing on fresh rubber.
far is Ayrton Senna in 6-7 seconds. Well, Patrese not very much outside that, 7.6 seconds. Stop for tyres on lap 29. Berger into the pits and out of them. And now all the leading runners with Alesi into the pits. You can't see him, but Alesi is in the pits. So that means all the front runners now have got new tyres.
Yes, and as we would suppose, with fresh rubber on, Mansell new fastest lap for Nigel Mansell. And Mansell now second behind Senna, and this is the race to watch. Can Mansell start to chip away at that 8-second gap that he had to Senna when they both had settled down after their pit stop?
Well, Senna, of course, in a tremendously strong position. I've said many times in the past that a lot of dialogue goes on between the drivers and the pits, and there'll be a lot going on between Senna now and his pit team manager, his race engineer, telling him where he is in relation to Nigel Mansell, who is back again into second position, having lost some 6 seconds, which could make all the difference at the end of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell is 7 seconds now behind Ayrton Senna on this, the 30th lap. We're a 5 laps shy of half distance at the present moment. And in the pits there is one of the Ligiers. I can see Michel Tetu, the race engineer, on the left, but out he went. I suspect it was Thierry Boutsen, and you're looking at Riccardo Patrese on new tyres. Now he, like Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna, can get the hammer down. 7.2 seconds, remember that. After 29 laps, Nigel Mansell, 7.2 seconds between him and Ayrton Senna. And we'll watch the gap from now on, because this is what the race is all about.
Yes, and Piquet, the only one of the leading group not to have stopped for tyres, and of course remember he's on Pirelli tyres, and it may well be that they're going to be able to go right through the race without a stop, so don't necessarily expect Piquet to stop. There is Senna. See Mansell hove into sight in the background, but believe me, he's not far out of sight. There's one back marker between them. Mansell will want to find him on a straight to dispatch him without any loss of time in the corners. And, well, there we see the gap between Patrese and Piquet, and Patrese certainly been catching Nelson Piquet. Remember, Patrese is on fresh rubber, Piquet hasn't yet stopped. Been catching him at about a second a lap, which is certainly what you'd expect for the difference in performance of fresh rubber. On the other hand, if Piquet can keep on with that sort of performance from his tyres, the extra performance you get with very fresh tyres will soon go away from Patrese's car, and I would guess at this stage that the Pirelli runners are going to try and go right through the race without a stop. Patrese getting right up behind Nelson Piquet. In the meantime, the gap is back over 7 seconds now up front from Senna to Mansell, but as I've said before, it's yo-yoing about a fair bit. It's inconsistent because of the traffic, although I think Mansell now, here's Patrese. Is he going to dive inside, or is he going to try and do Piquet on the straight with better traction, which he should have with the fresher tyres? Yes, he has. He's got very good traction out. He'll get him with the benefit of the toe, I would have thought, into turn one. Interesting comparison between the engines of these two cars, but Patrese is right there. So, Riccardo Patrese moves into third place.
And Nelson Piquet moves down to fourth in the last race we expect of the Benetton B190, because on Wednesday of this week, the new Benetton B191 is being launched in London, and that's the John Barnard designed car, and we're expecting it to be very special indeed. 9 people are out. out so far out of the 26 people who started at half distance. Lap 36 now. And those 9 are Gabriele Tarquini, Aguri Suzuki, Maurizio Gugelmin, Satoru Nakajima, Ivan Capelli, Stefano Modena, Andrea De Cesaris, JJ Leto and Eric Bernard. As through to complete another lap goes Ayrton Senna. Now, are we going to see Nigel Mansell go over the line so that I can give you the gap? And the answer is no, we are not. But Senna has now completed 36 laps. And notwithstanding the fact that Nigel Mansell, it's 6.2 seconds. So Mansell's taken another 10th out of Senna's lead, but that could easily change. Senna won't be unhappy with the lead he's got now. Mansell's got to be going very, very, very hard to cut into that.
Yes, but I think we'll get a look at the genuine situation between the two cars for a couple of laps, because I think we've got a clear road between them and there's nothing much in front of Senna, so they may get 3 or 4 laps now where they're not molested by any traffic, and if that's the case we will see really if Nigel Mansell is able to close the gap on Ayrton Senna.
Race order from the top. Ayrton Senna, lap 39, leads Nigel Mansell by 4.8 seconds. It's come down from 6.3 to 4.8.
And it's coming down so fast now that one begins to think possibly there's some problem for Ayrton Senna, because they've had a clear run and Mansell's pulled a second a lap off him on each of the last 2 laps.
Now, which Ferrari is this? We need to see the driver's helmet, and it's into the pits. Well, we'll soon see, because there'll be an external shot. It's the second time the car has stopped. It's Alain Prost. Alain Prost's second stop. Now, 5.9 seconds. Well, Prost obviously unhappy with his tyres. He stopped on lap 39. Laps, Nigel Mansell has halved the gap. It is Mika Hakkinen that he's catching and about to lap. Now Ayrton Senna in the V12 Honda powered McLaren is fairly gobbling up the distance between himself and the youngest man in the race, 22-year-old Mika Hakkinen in only his 2nd Grand Prix. But as they go across the line, now there is Senna. And once again, I haven't seen Mansell, but I'll have the gap in just a second. It was at 3.2 seconds. And Senna is closing all the time on Mika Hakkinen. Lap 42, Senna leads, Mansell 2nd, Patrese 3rd. And you can see, there is Nigel Mansell. It's 3.1, or was, but it's now come down. I've got no doubt about that. And if Mika Hakkinen lets Mansell through cleanly, it will have been a big help to the Englishman. And it's Gerhard Berger now catching Nelson Piquet as into the pits comes Alesi. Now this is very significant. Both the Ferraris have had 2 tyre stops. Jean Alesi came in on lap 29, 6.46 seconds. That is an excellent stop on lap 43, and that's his 2nd stop, and he rejoins in 8th position with Ayrton Senna still leading Mansell and Patrese 3rd, Piquet 4th, being caught by Berger in 5th position. Down to 8th position goes Alesi, and that means up to 6th position comes Alain Prost, ahead of 7th place Roberto Moreno.
Well, Senna's just pulled out a little bit more lead on that lap as Mansell picked his way through the back markers, but they've now got clear air between them, no slower cars, and there is the gap, 3.5 seconds. And there we've got a glimpse of Senna, so you can see the gap. This is really the critical stage of the race. There's a tremendous battle being fought here between Senna and Mansell. Essential if Mansell is going to challenge Senna for a win, as we look at Piquet with Berger now challenging hard Remember, Piquet has not stopped for tyres, all the other leading runners have. And that is 4th place that Piquet runs in, with Berger closing. And here we see from the cockpit of Berger's McLaren, we get a good, tremendous view of the back of Nelson Piquet's car. See if Berger, now as they go downhill left-hander, then hard onto the brakes for the slow left-hander onto the main straight, can Berger outpower in the McLaren? He's perfectly positioned to get a good run at Piquet up the hill. Let's see if the V12 Honda, combined with the hole in the air that Piquet's making, can carry Berger past him. And it's going to be a fight under braking. Berger's going for the inside, and he's there. He's got the inside, he can now dictate the corner. Classic overtaking manoeuvre, but Piquet's not giving up easily. Berger now you see Berger there, very clever. He let the car run a little bit wide out of the left-hand bit there to push Piquet offline, and that was quite legitimate. Piquet knew it and expected it and tucked in quite happily behind Berger. It was not a position he was going to hold for very long. Remember, he's on old rubber. He just hasn't quite got the traction now, but it would appear that they've made the decision to go through the race on the one set. Now, plenty of traffic around. And that's Moreno in front of Ayrton Senna in the second Benetton. Senna gets past him without any delay or any problem. And he's got a few cars between himself and Mansell now, so this is a worrying time for Nigel Mansell.
And Roberto Moreno is in 9th position. You can see Mansell in the background. There's 3 cars between him and Senna, so as James says, this is going to give Ayrton a big advantage. He's lapped everybody up to 8th place now. He's leading on lap 47 by 4.1 seconds now from Nigel Mansell. Patrese is 3rd. Piquet is in 5th position because Gerhard Berger's got ahead of him, and in 6th position it is Alain Prost. Senna, as ever, is working the traffic. Into the pits at last comes Nelson Piquet. He's had to give up. That's lap 47, and that's a good stop by the Benetton mechanics, as they're not used to making a tyre stop now. 6.8 seconds. That's the third quickest one we've had. The Ferrari mechanics got crossed out in an amazing 5.9. They got a Lacey out in 6.4, and the Benetton mechanics have got Piquet out in 6.8, which, as I was saying, considering they're not used to tyre stops on account of the fact that Piquet and Moreno normally go straight through, is an excellent effort.
Well, Mansell is now dropping back on Senna, and I think it's more than just the traffic, because he's been lapping slower than teammate Riccardo Patrese for the last few laps, which would suggest that he's got a problem, and it may just be that he's overcooked his tyres with the big charge he's been putting in to try and catch Senna. But there is Ayrton Senna, the gap now 8.5 seconds, and clearly Mansell has some sort of a problem. Let's hope for his sake that it's not their new gearbox again. That was the problem in Phoenix in the first race. And with the World Championship at stake, if it's got a gearbox problem, Mansell won't be best pleased. Whoops.
Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi Ferrari, and it looks to me as though he's beached it, by which I mean the very low bottom of the car is riding over the high curb, and that means to say his rear wheels are off the ground. And if he's pushed off or dragged off, what he's getting, he's out of the race now. Pierluigi Martini joins the retirements. the problem, obviously. Now, how is this going to compare? Nigel Mansell in for his second set of tyres on lap 51. And, it's another bodge stop. 9.5 seconds. The mechanic at the front got the jack caught underneath the car as Nigel Mansell accelerated away. But it was better than the first stop, if scant consolation. But Senna's stop was 7 seconds. He's still in second place, Nigel Mansell. Senna's tyre stop on lap 27 was 7 seconds. Mansell's tyre stop the previous lap was 14 seconds. So Senna gained 7 seconds there. And Mansell's just stopped in 9.5, which gave Senna another 2-second advantage. Quite apart from the fact, of course, that Mansell's lost time on the slowing down and speeding up. But he's still in second place. Now, Patrese was 30 seconds behind in third position, so he'll obviously be a lot closer to Nigel Mansell. And now I think Ayrton Senna will have the cushion that he wants. I wonder whether he too will have to come in for a second set of tyres, as Mansell and both the Ferraris have.
Yes, well, Senna now really has the luxury of not having to, because he's got a big enough lead, even if he loses a fair bit of performance in tyres. And there's Moreno in the pits for his tyre stop, and it would appear that the Pirelli runners have really caught themselves out with too late a decision to change tyres.
And there's someone on fire. It's Comas, Eric Comas, in his first Grand Prix. What a way to finish.
And we've just had a report from the pits that there was a cut in one of Mansell's rear tyres, and that would suggest that he got a puncture, and one has to think that that is unlucky. So that was unfortunate for Mansell. That's one of those unforeseeable things that you can't defend against, and that would certainly, and that's the McLaren team, and they've got a set of tyres out and ready. But I would have thought that Senna would have come in much sooner after Mansell if he wanted to stop again, because a 25-second lead would only just get him out in the lead if they had a really good stop, and they wouldn't want to come out in second place behind Mansell, who's on relatively fresh rubber. So my guess is that those tyres are for Berger.
And we're getting one of two spots of rain here at Sao Paulo at the Interlagos circuit, but of course the spots of rain will affect the circuit the same for everybody. That is Mansell spinning. Mansell spins. Well, that'll give you an indication of how slippery it is. Mansell, he's stopping. Mansell out. Oh! For the second race second time in 2 races, Nigel Mansell retires in the Williams. Well up at Phoenix and in second place, and this is a replay, of course. Now, I'm really guessing, I don't know, but I wonder from the way Mansell spun there, whether it's a repetition of the problem that Riccardo Patrese had in Phoenix when his semi-automatic gearbox unexpectedly, first of all, put him into neutral and flung him sideways, and then, without any command from him, went to second gear.
Yes, the way things were happening with Mansell's car, the gut feeling that I had was the same as that, Murray. It looked like more gearbox trouble. I do hope not. Now there's a fit man. He's driven 60 laps of Interlagos, and he can still find the energy to run uphill. Mind you, with cars flying about the track, you get a fair bit of motivation for that.
Lap 63, and the challenge now is to Gerhard Berger in the second McLaren Honda V12, who is in third place, only 8.5 5 seconds behind Riccardo Patrese, and it would certainly be very nice indeed for McLaren, again, as they have many times in the Cup past, to have their 2 cars finish in first and second place. Well, Senna's going to win this race by a country mile, provided he just keeps going. Another crushingly dominant win, as he had in Phoenix. Can Gerhard Berger cut down the gap between himself and Riccardo Patrese second in the remaining Williams Renault and take second place? In fourth position now, it's Alain Prost as we ride with Ayrton Senna. In fifth position is Nelson Piquet. Sixth is Jean Alesi. So both the Ferraris and both the McLarens are in the points. That will help both of them in the Constructors' Championship, but it will mean, as you watch Riccardo Patrese second, that the gap between McLaren and Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship after 2 races will be even greater than it was after Phoenix. That's Jean Alesi, who, number 28, is in 6th position. And ahead of him is Nelson Piquet. So the Sicilian Jean Alesi is challenging the Brazilian Nelson Piquet, who once again is going to finish in the points. He finished 3rd in the World Championship last year, his first year for Benetton, after that disastrous couple of seasons with Lotus, when everybody accused him, I think with justification, of having lost his motivation. Now he's got the right car, he's got the motivation back, and he finished 3rd in the championship last year, 1 in Japan, 1 in Australia, and he was, of course, in 3rd position at Phoenix, the first Grand Prix of the year, running in 5th place now, behind Alain Prost, ahead of Jean Alesi, and Ayrton Senna, race leader, is on lap 66 with 5 laps to go at the completion of this one. And Riccardo Patrese has reduced the gap to 20 seconds. But I'm not going to get excited about it yet, because to me this just says that Senna, knowing exactly what his speed is in relation to Riccardo Patrese and his lap times are in relation to those of Riccardo, is just making sure that he's going to finish the Brazilian Grand Prix this time. Oh, that is Bertrand Gachot in the closing stages of the Brazilian Grand Prix, just as in Phoenix. Gachot is retiring from 7th place, and poor Eddie Jordan, who was in Japan just before the Brazilian Grand Prix to try and drum up more sponsorship for his team, will be bitterly disappointed with every justification. I'm very, very sorry, because this is the best turned out new Grand Prix team we've seen for a long time, and it's only 14 seconds now between Riccardo Patrese and Senna. Well, I say again, Senna is a supreme tactician. This is his 112th Grand Prix, of which he has won 27, to give him 405 points in the World Championship so far. But he certainly is cutting things pretty fine if he goes on for the rest of the race as he is now. He's tiptoeing his way round this bend. It looks a lot slower when you're looking at your television monitor through the camera on his car than it does if you're sitting in the cockpit, I'm quite sure of that. But he's on his 67th lap now, with Riccardo Patrese catching him very noticeably.
Yes, I rather got the impression that Senna was going even more slowly than ordinary circumspection would take one. Maybe, I don't know, we'll watch carefully, but I thought he may have a little bit of a problem. He was certainly taking the corners very slowly indeed. Yes, he does sound a bit peculiar. The car's not sounding fully healthy. He's certainly not using all the engine revs, and the gap down to 9.6, and it looks as if Senna is in a bit of trouble.
My goodness, is Senna going to be cheated of victory in the Brazilian Grand Prix for the 8th time by Riccardo Patrese, who has reduced that lead from 40 seconds to 9.6 seconds with 3 laps to go at the end of the one that they are on now. The Honda V12 engine won its first race. That was a terrific achievement. It looked as though he was going to win its second, but soon I think we're going to see Riccardo Patrese in the same shot as Ayrton Senna, who you can see visually is going slower. Absolutely no doubt about about that at all. 9.6 seconds was the gap, and we'll see what it is at the end of this lap. If we don't see, that's not Riccardo Patrese there, but we soon will see the Williams, and Senna is coming through to complete now his 68th lap.
No, well, I think Senna may have a serious gearbox problem and not be able to get the low gears. He seemed to be going through the left-hander onto the straight in a much higher gear than he would normally do, and with no acceleration. So maybe he's lost the low gears, and that is Patrese into sight, and he isn't that far away. And the gap is down to 5.4, and I'm sure it's the low gears, second and maybe third, that Senna has lost. I certainly get the impression, and that would be McLaren's bugbear of the last 18 months or so, is their gearbox. And I don't think Senna can get around these slow hairpins properly, because he's having to take them in maybe fourth gear.
Lap 69, and Patrese surges past Mika Hakkinen. 5.4 seconds was the gap as they went into their 69th lap in this 71 lap race. Ayrton Senna is in danger of losing the Brazilian Grand Prix for the 8th time in his career. The race he wanted to win more than all others. And the amazing Riccardo Patrese, the man who's driven in more Grand Prix than anyone else, this is his 210th, of which he has won 3, is seeing the possibility and hearing over his headphones the possibility of making this his 4th and denying Ayrton Senna that victory. Well, 5.4 seconds was the gap. I said we were going to see them both in the same shot. There is Senna, there is Patrese, and they're coming through to complete the lap. That is the end of lap 69. This is the last lap but one. 4.1 seconds, but Senna can do it.
And that oil flag hung out then makes them think it's raining again. And if we've got a little bit of rain coming down to just to add to it. But, no, and Senna, yes, that you see, he's definitely got a gearbox problem. He can't get the lower gears. Patrese reeling him in all the time.
And just imagine the tension in Ayrton Senna's head, in his cockpit. This is it. He's on the last lap of one of the Brazilian Grand Prix. The Brazilian hero, Ayrton Senna, has got Riccardo Patrese bearing down on his McLaren Honda, gaining all the time. The last lap coming up, you can see Senna is going slower. I hope we're soon going to get an exterior shot, because while it's nice to know what Senna is seeing, I would rather be seeing Senna and Patrese together. And you can hear that Senna has really got a problem. Here his engine blatting. It's not running clear, it's not running cleanly. Now this is the start of the last lap. Ayrton Senna gets the 1 lap to go signal. The crowd is, of course, absolutely beside itself with worry and excitement, and the gap is down to 3.6 seconds. I don't see, frankly, how Riccardo Patrese, it's pouring with rain now. I look through and I see Senna waving. Look at him, he's saying, stop the race, stop the race. But it's too late, Ayrton, you're on the last lap. You can lose this race.
Yes, that was a replay of Senna going past the start-finish line to start that last lap. Now we're back in the car in the infield. What we need is a look in his mirror to see if we can see Patrese coming back. Unfortunately, all we can see is Ayrton's helmet. Whoops, there he was. I couldn't see him in the background, but he hasn't gained at all. And Senna tiptoeing, stuck in a high gear, I think. But the rain is coming down so hard, and that has really worked against Riccardo Patrese. And it does also mean if the race is stopped, it's stopped 1 lap retrospectively, and so Senna would already have won if it's stopped because of rain, because it's when the lead across the line the previous time. And here comes Ayrton Senna for a fine win.
Yes, Ayrton Senna achieves his ambition to win the Brazilian Grand Prix, but another lap or two and I think he would not have done so. But Ifs don't matter. Senna has won. Vencedor, winner. Ayrton Senna in Brazil. This is what he's been working for all his career, and he's now achieved it. Number one, Ayrton Senna has won in Brazil, but a very, very lucky man. But Senna has won by 2.9 seconds the Brazilian Grand Prix of 1991, with Riccardo Patrese a superb second. The second McLaren, that of Gerhard Berger, finishes in third position. In fourth position, Alain Prost. Fifth is Nelson Piquet. Sixth, the last man to be unlapped, was Jean Alesi. And you can see how happy Brazil is, and there will be a big party in Sao Paulo tonight. And the happiest man in Brazil must surely be Ayrton Senna. 2 wins from 2 races, 20 points, and that means to say that he's 11 points ahead of Alain Prost in the World Championship. Riccardo Patrese and Nelson Piquet third equal, Gerhard Berger fifth, Stefano Modena in sixth position. And already McLaren lead Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship by 14 points. Well, the next Grand Prix is in 5 weeks' time, on April the 28th at Imola. So join us then for the start of the European season.
Larga, vamos